Okay, so first, let's start off here by talking about DNA. I'm sure all of us have heard of DNA before, deoxyribonucleic acid. It is basically, so DNA in human cells, DNA acts as a complete set of instructions that tells us our bodies how to develop. It encodes for each protein. There's little parts of each piece of DNA called a gene, which tells the body what proteins to make. Okay. The DNA is located in the nucleus of the cell. There's also some located in your mitochondria, but most of them are in the nucleus of your cells. Okay, inside the nucleus, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. So your DNA is not just one long molecule, it's actually 23 sets of DNA molecules that all give the different information for your how to make your body. So basically, you have 23 sets of instructions. Each set tells gives a different instruction. So maybe this chromosome tells you what hair color you are, and as all these other things, it tells you how to make your body, right? Most of our DNA is actually identical. Like if you were to look at my DNA and any of your DNA, like 99 or a large percent of it is identical because it's just creating your body is for the most part pretty much the same. But there are slight differences in the DNA. There are slight differences in the genes. And when we have differences in the genes, we often call these alleles. So if a gene on the same part of a chromosome that gives instructions for eye color, if it gives one type, gives it for blue eyes, and one gives it for brown eyes, but they would be on the same part, the same segment of DNA, the same location, we call those alleles. So alleles is kind of just another word for genes, but when we have genes that differ, we call them alleles. If they're the same gene, or they're gene for the same trait, but they're different, we call them alleles, if that makes sense. I always think it's good to get kind of like where is this occurring in your body? Well, it's occurring in the nucleus when the cells reproduce and when they create proteins. These are the set of instructions that they use to do that. Okay, that's where it's all at. Right, inside the nucleus. In the nucleus, there's the chromosomes, and the chromosomes have these DNA molecules that are all wrapped up in them. Okay, and then within the DNA, there are genes, which are segments of the DNA, which tell us how to make the body. Okay, now alleles. Again, alleles are one of two or more alternative forms of a gene that arise by mutation. They're found in the same place on a chromosome. Okay, found in the same place of a chromosome. So sometimes some genes have just two types of alleles, but a lot of times there's more than two, right? So for example, eye color has quite a few. There's brown eyes, there's blue eyes, there's green eyes, there's even amber eyes, right? And sometimes I think amber is actually a combination of different genes, but so usually there's two alleles, but sometimes there's more. Okay. Usually there's two, sometimes there's more. All right. And then when we have alleles, there's usually one that dominates the other. So if you have both of the alleles, one will dominate over the other and one will overpower. So for example, if you have an allele for brown eyes and an allele for blue eyes, because everyone gets two, then you'll have brown eyes because brown eyes is dominant. Okay, and blue eyes is recessive. What we say is recessive. Okay, so recessive alleles will only be expressed if no dominant allele is present. So again, so why do we get two alleles? Why do we get two of them? Well, you get one from your mom and one from your dad. So one from each parent. So basically, let's look at that real quick. So for every gene, you have two of the same, or really you can have all these different combinations actually here. So you get one from your mom, one from your dad, right? So you can have genes that have the same two alleles, or you can have two different alleles. So you can have recessive and dominant, or you can have recessive recessive or dominant dominant. Okay, a recessive allele will only produce a phenotype if there's no dominant allele present. Now, what is a phenotype? Well, a phenotype is the physical appearance or how the gene is expressed. Okay, so phenotype is what you see. Okay, what is the result? A phenotype is the result. Okay, you can see it in the organism. You can see it in the organism, right? If you have brown eyes, that's your phenotype. Blue eyes, that's your phenotype. It has nothing to do really with the alleles. It's just what does it look like? Okay. The genotype is the actual genetic material. So what genes an organism has. So the genotype is what is actually on your chromosome. Okay, is what's actually on your what's actually in your DNA. So how is your DNA encoded? Okay, what gene do you have? The genotype. Kind of makes sense. Genotype. Okay. And I forget, pheno might mean like something like look. So I don't know. But it's what you look like is phenotype. Genotype is what the gene tells you. What the gene tells you. Okay. And we're going to do some practice with looking at phenotype and genotype. So hopefully we get those terms. Makes a little bit more sense here. Okay. So genotype and phenotype. Okay, so because we are diploid organisms, we get two alleles for every gene. We get one from our mom and one from our dad. Okay. Now, we can determine what alleles our parents have by looking at their offspring, or we can find out what alleles children might have by looking at the alleles of the parents. Okay, so we can kind of go we can go back and we can go both ways. We can look at it both ways. Okay. And in order to figure these things out, we use what we call a Punnett square. A Punnett square. Basically, we take the genotype of one parent and the genotype of the other, and then cross them. See what all the possible combinations could be. And these are just some examples of Punnett squares there. Okay, we're going to do some practice. It'll just make more sense when we just practice it. All right. Now, there's some terms here. When we do a Punnett square, we get different mixes of the alleles. If the resulting genotype has the same gene, so two of the same gene, we call it homozygous. Homozygous, so it could be homozygous dominant. So like this one here. So homozygous dominant, we have both dominant. So usually we make the dominant ones with a capital letter. So any dominant gene we put as a capital letter. Okay, so homozygous dominant, homo meaning the same. Homo means the same. Homosexual, same sex. Heterosexual, different sex. Right? Homo and hetero. So homozygous dominant would be both dominant. Homozygous recessive would be both recessive. Okay. And then if you have heterozygous, you don't have to say whether it's dominant or recessive, because heterozygous means that they have different gene types. So one dominant, one recessive. One dominant, one recessive. Okay. So let's do some practice Punnett squares here, and then we can kind of take it from there. So in guinea pigs, short hair is dominant over long hair, right? If a short-haired SS guinea pig is crossed with a long-haired SS guinea pig, what are the possible genotypes and phenotypes of their offspring and percent chance of each? So first of all, I want to draw a little Punnett square over here. So we have SS. Those are capital S's, and these are little s's. S, S. So here's my Punnett square. Dun, 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 dun. So basically, you're just looking at what possible combinations there could be. So we could get a little s and a big S. So S and S. A big S and a little s, same thing here, S and S. I typically just write the big letter first, right? Then S and S, S and S. Okay, so there would be really, in general, if we weren't looking at this, you could have SS, you could have S, S, or you could have S, S. So you could have homo dominant, you could have hetero, and then you could have homo recessive. Now, in this case, we don't have any homo dominant, so 0. In this case, we have 4 out of 4. Could be hetero, and then homo recessive is 0. Okay, so 4 out of 4 would be 100%. Okay, so now when we look at so these would be all the genotypes. Okay, the possible genotypes: SS, SS, S little s, little s, little s. Okay, so the possible genotypes: 0 for the homo dominant, 4 out of 4 for the hetero, 0 for the homo recessive. So that means 100%. So percent of each. And that's for the genotypes. For the phenotypes, there's only really 2 phenotypes we could have here. Okay, we could have short hair, or we could have long hair. Okay, and it says here that the short hair is dominant. So since we have capital S, little s, all of them are like that. They're all going to have short hair, 100%. So 4 are going to have short hair, or 100%. And 0 or 0% are going to have long hair for the phenotypes. Make sense? Pretty simple. Not too bad. Okay. Let's try another one here. So can you curl your tongue up on the side? So, right? Tongue curling is a dominant genetic trait. Suppose a man who is T, little t, and a woman who is also T, little t, have a child. What are the possible genotypes and phenotypes for their children? So, Punnett square here. Again, we get 1 from each parent. Total of 2. So this one will be big T, big T. This one will be big T, little t. This will be big T, little t. And this will be T, T. So all the genotype possibilities: two big T's, a big T and a little t, or 2 little t's. So big T, there's 1 out of 4. Sorry, big T, big T. Big T, little t, it's 2 out of 4. And little t is 1 out of 4. So the percentage here for the genotypes would be 25%, 50%, and 25%. So 1 divided by 4 times 100, 2 divided by 4 times 100, 1 divided by 4 times 100. Okay, so that would be the genotype. The phenotype. So there's only two possibilities, right? We can have curl tongue and non-curl. So curl and non-curl. So curling your tongue is dominant, so the big T. So anything with a big T will allow you to curl. So we actually have 3 out of 4. And then non-curl is only 1 out of 4. So the phenotype for curl will be 75%. So 75% chance that you'll get an offspring that can curl their tongue, and a 25% chance that you'll get one that cannot curl their tongue. Easy peasy. Okay. Anyone want me to do another one? If anyone wants to do another one, just say yes in the chat. If not, we're going to stop there. Okay. I guess most people have gotten it. And if you didn't get it, you can always go back and watch the video again. Okay. That's pretty much it. The work you have to do now is just the Punnett squares and all this stuff. Okay. Good luck. And you're free to go. Get that work done. Make sure you turn it in. And I'll see you all on